Guys, it's your girl Jay, and I'm back now. For those that have been watching the clips on the reading at other parts of my social media, be it TikTok or Instagram, keep in mind this read was initially for my webcam models, and it also can resonate to those that are not in the business, right? But it was a place of me doing my own reading on myself before I started my show, and also to share with my cam girls. And so I saved the best for last. And keep in mind, like I said, I'm reading from my happiness cards. I just now basically not just now, but I've had these cards for about 4 or 5 years, and I was doing the read, and this particular card right here, y'all, never fell out, never ran across this card. And this one is the be aware of the company you keep. I've been saying this for the last, I don't know, just like the last 5 months. This has been really heavy on my heart. So when I was getting ready to put my cards away, and this one fell out, and I had to pick it up right off the floor. And I said, oh my gosh, this has never happened before with these specific cards, because they're so little. I won't say I rarely drop them, but again, never did this card pop out. I like to think that I shuffle okay, even though I do have the girls, but I do shuffle pretty, to my liking. But again, this says, beware of the company you keep. Spend your time with joyful people. Oh my gosh. I often added this to the mix, though, by the way, y'all. Not only be aware of the company you keep, also that company can be you, right? Be aware of the company you keep as it relates to your own self. Are you like, for instance, we just had this card that popped up too in my reading, or in your read, was be your own BFF. So are you your own worst enemy, right? Are you the worst company to have towards yourself, with yourself? But not with, I'm gonna go here without diving too deep, but are you being around people, myself included? And sometimes we may think that, okay, because it's not, they're not in proximity, or they're not physically right next to us. Who do you keep answering the phone when they call? Who you keep on picking up the phone? You keep on scrolling on certain things that don't feed you. You have to practice so much awareness, to where you really know yourself and what helps you to feel good and what contributes to you feeling bad. And a lot of times it is the company you keep. A lot of times it's and going back to what I said earlier regarding sitting with your own self and you being your own worst company, that usually also comes from somebody else, of what they placed inside of you. Let me say that again. That usually comes from also someone else, of what they placed inside of you. What do you mean, Jay? The seed of doubt. See, this is how the enemy, and I'm gonna go a little bit believerish on y'all. You know what I mean? From that standpoint, the greatest thing that the quote unquote enemy wants to do, and I have to put emphasis here, is to get you to have self doubt. You could be sitting with someone who may seem like they're helping you. They're only giving you direction or advice or guidance from their own perspective, or their own perception, or their own way of thinking, their own experiences. And so if they're not careful, and sometimes I don't think these people are haters or jealous of you. Sometimes people are working with the best they got. I've been around people that I had to really pray and say to myself, they really don't know. They're trying to help, but they don't realize that the help that they're trying to help ain't gonna help me. You get what I'm saying? Again, people can offer the help, but people can only offer the help in which they understand, or which they can convey, or which they have the capacity to give. And again, it could leave you blank, right? And then there's those people who, because they didn't do it, they didn't experience, as you guys know, they didn't go through it, they didn't know it for themselves, they will either consciously or subconsciously plant a seed of doubt in you. And now when you get to yourself by yourself, you become your own worst company, because now you're going back through wondering and doubting yourself. Did I make the right decision? Did I, should I have not done this? Should I have went left when everybody else was going right? Should I have, what I could have done different, blah, 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 right? And the cool part about it is that within this read, if you guys notice, the second card was reminisce. And it doesn't say reminisce on the negative stuff. It says reminisce about happy memories. So if you're going to sit and you're going to sit to yourself by yourself and think about your past and dwell on it, dwell on the good times. And yeah, some may argue and say, well, you don't want to be stuck in your past. In fact, my very first self-help book, well, I think my second self-help book was The Power of Now by Elo, I forget how to pronounce his name, but a German writer. And he wrote, in that book was intense. It was a heavy read for me, especially being someone who many would consider an empath, someone who's a very feely person, someone who is, just one of those type of persons, super sensitive. That was a hard read for me because I'm like, wow, it's basically saying you're just going to have to deal with it. Whatever you're going through right now, you're just going to have to deal with it. The bad, the ugly, the pain, the suffering, whatever you're feeling, you just going to have to go through it until it's no more, right? And the beautiful thing about that, even though it was a hard read for me, it still was letting me know that everything is not temporary. Things do come to an end. For those that are believers, then you do know that there's a season for everything. There's a season to cry, a season to mend, a season for joy. All of these things to be considered with this thing called life. But back to being aware of the company you keep. And again, this was a specific read from my webcam models. You have to be mindful of what seed of doubt has been put into you. You know what I mean? This is why we have to be careful about who we listen to. We have to be careful because, again, even as I am a teacher in this industry, so to speak, that was a quote on that, y'all, teacher, because I may not be to some, and I don't really not want for huge titles, right? I mean, anywho, so I say all that to say, with what I share, I'm a sharer then, right? With what I share with my webcam models, that it's important that you know who planted the seed of doubt in you. Which cam model teacher are you listening to that causes you to feel like you're not good enough, that causes you to feel like you need to have a particular ring light or you need to have a particular this or that in order to be your best self? What part of social media, what part of life has taught, and this is for anybody listening, that has told you you have to be a certain weight, you have to be a certain color, you have to be a certain, obviously we know it's society, obviously we know that it's, the patriarch, it's all these things to be considered, right? We know that. But when you get to yourself by yourself, number one for me, because I am a believer, the number one question I have to go back and keep asking, if I have to ask it every day, all day long, I ask this question: God, who do you say that I am? And I allow God to sit with me and be my company. This is why a lot of times in my life, a lot of folks would say I'm a loner, that I roll solo. They blame it on the fact that I'm an Aquarius, that I'm a ghoster. And in fact, all over social media, they say, Aquarians are cold-blooded, that we are the biggest ghosters. It's not that. It's just because we like that time to ourselves. And I like being in my own head, figuring it out. I love being self-analytical. I would go as far as to say I get off on it, if you will. But I do, because I know that I'm going to be able to get those downloads, is what people call them these days. I'm gonna be able to get them revelations while I'm washing dishes by myself, and the Spirit is gonna show me, gonna lead me, I get a spontaneous thought. It'll be a something out of nowhere. I love that feeling when I get to myself by myself and allow my guardian angels and allow God to be my company, and it be the best company I keep. I can't go wrong. I absolutely I cannot go wrong. But it's always been the times in my life, y'all. I'm telling you guys this with much passion, because it is I'm a living testimony of what it's been like for me when I hang around, talk to, invited in the wrong company. And it's not because, it's always them, but the truth is because my my picker meter has been broken. I haven't been the best picker of friends, the best picker of situations. I have not been that, even while I'm intuitive. But because of my own traumas and my own circumstances in life, guess what, y'all? I'm still a work in progress. I didn't always make the best decisions because, also for those who don't know, I am neurodivergent. So there were people, places, and things that I just trusted for what I saw. I felt like this: if I didn't deceive you, you didn't have no reason to deceive me. That is literally how my brain works. It would take me years, sometimes years, for me to come to the absolute conclusion of realizing that this people, this person, this sister, this family member, this whoever, this cousin, this whoever, this situation, this job, whatever it may be, this environment is not really for me. It's really not feeding me in the way that it should feed me, in a way that is healthy, in a way that is kind. Even kindness goes a long way. Genuine kindness just goes a long way. You don't even have to like people to be kind to them. I mean, you just really don't. It's as long as you're not the opposite of being hateful towards them, or mean spirited. But I say all that to say, when it comes to being your own, being around, be aware of the company you keep. This is huge for me, especially when God is elevating you to a place. And mind you, I'm not big on using the word levels, right? Because that puts us almost in a place of judging others, right? So let me just say it this way: there are just certain environments, and there are just certain walks of life that I realize that's not going to benefit me in the way that it should, and I don't want no more parts of it, because my life experience has shown me this is not going to turn out in my favor. That's not a judgment call. That's the absolute reality of me wanting to make sure that I live to see another day. You know what I'm saying? It's really that. Because if you think about it, even if someone is not threatening you physically, right, and not doing those things, but you do have spiritual attacks. You can have things again where you are not sure if these people are your friends or if they're there for you or not. And again, putting a lot of emphasis on being neurodivergent for those that are in that category too. Again, sometimes we're late. Sometimes we don't get it right away. Sometimes we can't tell if that's a knife in a person's hand or if that's a champagne bottle and they're getting ready to celebrate, or if they're going to take that champagne bottle and hit us over the head with it. We're just thinking they're here to celebrate. You know what I mean? And so just and this is why for me as a reader, I rely heavily on my intuition. I rely heavily on what I feel. I've been taught many times, I've been told, I should say, feelings don't matter. You shouldn't pay attention to your feelings. You're too emotional. To me, anybody that calls me too emotional and too sensitive, that's a major red flag for me. If you don't allow me to use my superpower, or you don't allow me to, you're just into your feelings. You're just too sensitive. I've heard it all my life. You're too sensitive. And then people get to calling you strange names. She's special. She's a weirdo. I am the queen of weirdos. You better know it. Absolutely. Anything that will protect me by any means necessary, I'll be that. You get what I'm saying? Go ahead and call me what you need to, because this is what I have to do in order to do what it is that God has called me to do. And that is to help gently guide, because this is the key word here, y'all. Gently, right? Sweetly, gently. I use those words a lot if you have been listening to me for a while. Gently guide, sweetly guide people to discovering their own self and embracing that. If you guys ever want to know, well, what is the whole mode? What is the whole thing? What is the foundation and core of whatever it is that you do, right? Anything that I do is so that the world and so people can feel good about who they are. Because I've lived a life where I've always had somebody trying to make me feel bad about who I am. Trust me, I'm telling you what I know, whether it was indirect, whether it was direct, whether it was because I'm a DV survivor, where it's always something, as my nanny used to say. However, I don't let that stop me, although I've let it pause me. I've let it slow me up, but it ain't stopped me. Please, whoever needs to hear this, when you look over your life, you have to know that, has it really stopped you, or just put a pause on some things? Did this situation really stop what God has for you, or did it just slow it up? And it's okay if it's slowed up, because it's still going. The beautiful thing is, when I'm out and about in LA, I love seeing elderly people. I love seeing them as old as they are, probably as old as dirt, as people would say, right? Just saying, I love me some elderly folks. I was raised by my great-grandparents, so go figure. But when I see elderly people out and about doing their thing, there's this place in me that I feel this overwhelming warmth towards them, of course, but also I really observe and I say, you know what? No matter how slow she is getting across that street, she's getting across the damn street. And what I like seeing is that most times, I'll say 98% of the time, people will slow up on the traffic. I'll get in the middle in the street and walk. If I see many of them walking across the street, I'll walk beside them. I've learned not to actually reach out to try to hold their shoulder or their, and guide them across the street. But I do let them know that I'm there. I'll walk literally right next to them, slow as I don't know. And I'm a slow walker myself, maybe because I'm 4'11", I got little short legs, don't know. But I will walk walk slow right next to them and ask them, hey, how are you doing today? Just want to make sure you get across the street. And they smile at me. They know I guess they know I'm not a threat, and I make sure that the traffic is stopped, and I make sure that they get their slow selves across the street. I've never been cursed out before, y'all. Never, knock on wood. But my point is this, is that again, the company you keep, that goes back to that, right? Back to the spirit, the company you keep. That little bit of time that I spend walking that elderly woman across the street, you know what that feels? That ignites me. I feel good. I'm glad she got to where she was going safe. And then one day I was walking an elderly woman across the street, y'all, in my own little way, right? And I remember thinking to myself, I remember this overwhelming feeling of empathy that came over because she was very frail, getting across the street. And I had to remind myself, or the spirit, God reminded me, you don't know where she lives, but look how far she might have came. In other words, the other blocks and the other streets she had to cross happened way before she got to you. And I was like, oh, as God is always reminding me too, that God's got them just like he's got me. I just thought I'd throw that in the bucket, right? So that I don't get overly empathic and make wrong decisions or make decisions that have put me in a dangerous situation, because there was a time in my life where people could take advantage or use my empathy as manipulation. And so they knew that I was one to wear my heart on my sleeve, so that they would take that and use that against me, or at least use that to get what they wanted. And I fell for it every time. I was a sucker every time, y'all. But these days, as I'm older, it took me a while to get here, I can say, you know what, how then do I where can I put myself or my place or what type of company can I be around that I know it ignites me, it feeds me, I can get in there and get out of there. And I use the example of the little old lady for two reasons: of her moving slow at her own pace and still getting there. And then also it feeds me with the knowing that I can still offer help. I can still be of some assistance. I can still look out and watch out for the cars and put up my hands and make sure they slow down in case they're not, so they can see me, even if they don't see her, or whatever the case is. And that is the company I keep for only a minute. You understand what I'm saying? The company you keep don't have to be. In other words, you can meet somebody and talk to them for just 2 minutes and they can ruin your damn day. I swear to God, let me tell y'all, what was this? I was waiting at the bus stop. This is a whole nother story, but I was waiting at the bus stop having a conversation. Started a conversation because I'm a talky kind of girl or whatever. My daughter had just dropped me off, and I didn't even tell her this story. I can't wait to tell her, but this man started talking to me about motorcycles, and about drivers, as we witnessed a guy on a motorcycle without a helmet on. And for those that don't know this story, I witnessed someone actually lose their life, right in front of me, years ago. And so that was a bit traumatic. So I say all that to say, this man is telling the story and he's giving details on what could happen. And I tell this man, oh, yes, I understand. I understand that, what could happen. I was a witness to a motorcycle accident years ago. He goes on and on and on, and he's giving me dark details. And I can't even repeat it right here on social media. But I say all that to say, he almost ruined my damn day. Now, this is a person, in my opinion, I don't think he meant any harm. I don't think he was trying to, but that conversation was only 5 minutes. And then the bus showed up and I just said, thank you, Jesus. And when I got on that bus, I sat as far away from him as I could, not because he was a bad guy, but because why? That was my trauma and my stuff that, now he didn't know this, or did he? Because if you think about it from a spiritual plane, you can say, the devil sent that man. I could say that, right? But then I'm like, you know what? He didn't know that. I'm not going to hold that man hostage to that, and I'm not going to continue to have a bad day because I felt because I had some PTSD, basically, right? As we talk about memories and going back into reminiscing on good or happy memories, right? Well, that wasn't a happy memory for me, and this man didn't know it. But what am I really saying? The company you keep does not have to be hours and hours and hours. It could be what you're continuously attracting into your life. You guys get what I'm saying? So if you're going out and about and you continue to find rude people that come around you when you're out, let's just say at a restaurant, and you keep on getting a rude, let's say waiter, and you keep on allowing that in other words, if you ever get a rude waiter, you can say, excuse me, to the manager, whoever, can I get someone else to serve me because, or it don't have to be rude. If you feel some kind of way about it, that's just me personally. I'm a Philly kind of girl. I just said it earlier. If I feel that you're not happy about serving me, I don't want you serving me. It's as simple as that, because I like giving tips, and I don't want to not give you a tip because you had a bad attitude. I don't want to not do what I like doing because I'd rather just move you out of the way and then bring somebody in that, yay, you get what I'm saying? Because even in that moment, it's the company you keep. Heavy on the word keep. How long will, in other words, don't wait until you get all the way to the check or to the end of the meal to complain. If you feel it, sense it, or whatever. Because I even tried to think to myself, well, maybe they'll warm up after a while. After I fawn, after I, smile at them, after I compliment them on their, if they're in a uniform, I might compliment them on their, I don't know, fingers or anything to try to be nice, play nice, so that they can ease up off the pressure, so that I can feel comfortable as I'm sitting here in this restaurant, right? But the truth is this: if I feel that way, I sense that it's not an exaggeration, I need to change waiters, and I have that right to do so, right? And again, they may not even be meaning to be mean or arrested bitch face for some people that call it that. But I need people that I'm a people person. Hell, I'm gonna need you to smile. I'm gonna need you to be, oh, it's a sunny day outside. And when I say it's sunny, I don't need you to tell me, oh my gosh, I've been here all day. It looks like it's gonna rain. I don't want to hear nothing negative, or what I would call negative, because at the end of the day, I am mindful of what feeds my spirit, right? So what am I really saying? The company you keep, whether it's a year, 2 years, or 2 minutes, you have a choice, right? And then the company you keep with yourself usually is based on what other people have poured into you, or you allow to seep into your spirit. And then you go home when you're by yourself, and then you keep regurgitating it over and over again what they said, and then you're like, well, maybe they're right. Maybe they're this. But as a bonus, if you ever feel that way, ask yourself this: how did you feel about that idea or that conversation or that move you were going to make? How did you feel before you told them? If you felt excited about it, if you felt enthusiastic about it, that's your answer. Oh God, that was so for me right there. Thank you, Jesus. That right there was so for me. Man, let me pause. Let me pause. And I'm sitting in front of this candle, so I'm sweating. But anywho, yeah, y'all. If you feel enthusiastic about it, energetic about it, optimistic about it, you don't let the company that you keep take that away from you. You don't let people tell you, oh, why don't you just, well, that don't sound realistic. No, that don't sound realistic to you for your life. But baby, it sounds like a beautiful thing over here, right? It's beautiful over here. And then I've been around people, I swear, you guys, I can't tell you how many times I overly explained of just how good of idea that I've had back in the day. And watch this, y'all, because I am in this flesh, right? And I have my flaws. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at situations, circumstances, people, places, and things, and here it is in the future, and now people want to listen. Now people want to do what they said I shouldn't or couldn't do. And I felt some kind of way. So I've had to pray and say, Lord, don't let me be bitter or resentful, because, I'm an Aquarius. I'm a forward thinker. It's already in my spiritual DNA. I'm a believer. I'm Christ conscious. I'm always thinking of the possibilities of a good outcome. I'm literally the definition of a forward thinker. So I have to remember, not everybody's going to be there where I'm at a particular season in time. My issue has been opening up my mouth too soon, and then you wonder why. And then I wonder why people are looking at me with this, either blank stare, blank face, or questioning my decisions or questioning how I maneuver. I've dealt with it all my life. Again, I'm the queen of weirdos. Trust me. Why? Because everything I've almost ever done to the people I chose to hang around with, hell yeah, to them, it was weird. To them, it's weird. Everything I do even now is going to be very weird to a lot of people. I'm going to be a weirdo to many, and I own that. I'm going to be weird. I'm going to be crazy. I'm going to be eccentric. I'm going to be strange. I'm going to be slow. I'm going to be everything that they do not interpret, that they do not understand. And in many cases that there is not because they're slow and their neurodivergent, is because they choose not to, because of who it's coming from. Be mindful of that too, ladies and gentlemen. People may not see you like you see yourself or how God sees you, right? Simply put. And so what do? You have to be. This card doesn't say, watch the company you keep, or, pay attention. It says be aware. Be aware. That's just like when you see people who got them signs on their house regarding dogs. They were like, beware of dog. They don't just be like, we have a dog. They don't be like, dog might bite. They just say, beware of dog, right? It is to imply caution. It is to imply, if you come over here, it's going to be some problems for you. So be aware of the company you keep. Look out for, even the Bible says, be watchful. And so you must pay attention to, you must be watchful, not in a paranoid way, of course. It's too many people. That's another thing too, right? The irony is that I've been around and put myself in spaces and places where people were they overly warned me. They were overly, weary, or they would overly tell me, "Ooh, if I were you, I wouldn't do." They always came with a warning label. They were the ones that were like, I wouldn't hang out with them. I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't do that. Ooh, no. Last time I heard this. Last time I heard that. They not doing that no more. Ooh, if I were you, I wouldn't. I would just this. I can't tell you how many people have been in my life, y'all, that I let in my life slip through the cracks, who always warned me about something. Their fears becoming my own. A lot of times, if we think about it, look back on your life and say to yourself, you know what? Is this my stuff or is this theirs? What in the hell do I have to be afraid of? Especially if you're a believer. Why am I sitting up here being nervous and feeling some kind of way about my decisions when I know that I sat with God and had that poured into my spirit and God said, go for it? Because the truth is this, if God said go for it, your guardian angel said go for it, the hell with what everybody else is thinking. They'll catch up or they won't, they'll get it or they won't. And like the little old lady walking across the street, she eventually gets to her destination. That I trust and that I know. So again, because even the company she keeps, if you think about it, here she is 90, maybe looking like 90 some years old, walking across the street. I would imagine if I sat down with that woman, she'd be able to tell me, I didn't get here just by being silly, a silly little girl or a silly woman. I got here by the company I was mindful of keeping. And what's interesting about them, every time I see them, they're always by themselves. They're their own best company. If y'all don't hear nothing else I'm saying, be your own best company. What else is in this reading? Be your own BFF. Be your own BFF. This is a guideline for me for the rest of the week. I'm going to be my own best friend. I'm going to reminisce on the good times. In fact, I'm about to put that song on by Michael Jackson. It's my favorite song after I, get out of here. I think about the good times we shared together. Yeah. Okay? I'm just saying. I'm going to reminisce on the good things that I've had in my life. Even the good people I've met in my life. Even if it was just for a second. The company I continue to keep. The company that I meet in passing. Company's company. Even standing at the bus stop, that's company, right? Even if the waiter standing, taking your order, that's company. They're in your company. They're in your space for even just maybe 10 minutes or however long you're in that restaurant. All of it matters. This doesn't always have to be friendly, friends, family, and things of that nature. This is the company you keep no matter what or how long the timing it is. I really want to drive that home. Right? Because some people think it's irrelevant. Some people think, I ain't going to see them again. And I've said that too. But sometimes you can meet weird, not weird, but, rude people in Walmart or Target, whatever. And you cannot let that depict the rest of your day or the rest of your life. Because they're everywhere, right? But there ought to be a place in you that says, you know what? Today, I'm going to look for the company or the cashier that feeds me my good stuff, right? I'm looking for them good feels. If I feel at any time this person is just not a vibe, I'm not trying to make them feel bad. It's just that we're not a match. And I have to be very consciously aware of the company I keep, especially if you're an empath, because if you deal with a rude customer or you deal with a rude person, especially to my webcam models, if you deal with them and you're empathic, that can mess up your whole day and take away your confidence to even want to log in. You'll feel like, oh, let me recover for 48 hours. Nobody should have an impact on us so bad that it ruins our whole day to where we can't get nobody. Nobody should make us feel, no matter how feely we are, no matter how empathic we are, nobody should have that much power over us as individuals, right? This is why I love about the business that I'm in, is because guess what? The block button, the kick you out of my room button is a fire button for me. Because no, you're not going to come in here and be disrespectful. No, I don't give a damn what you think about me and us girls in this industry. Not here. And it took me years to get so boisterous about it, right? Anywho, so again, be your own BFF, cam girl. Reminisce on the good times you had in your shows, because you did have some good ones. I don't care if the private was only 2 minutes. Was it a good 2 minutes, right? Company you keep. The men that come to your broadcast, the men that come to your shows, right? The company you keep is so important. The company you keep in your room, to be specific, right? And then, of course, be aware of, again, being aware of the company you keep. And again, reminisce on the times you had in your private shows or in your shows where you did really good. Reminisce on a day. I wouldn't care if it was just 30 minutes or a day or one private, but I can guarantee you had a time where you say, that was really good. How do I make another day like that? What was I wearing that day? What energy was I wearing? Energy did I have? Was it in the morning that I logged in? Was it at night? What moved? What happened? What was that? And seek out that again. Seek out that again. Don't go chasing nothing, but seek it out, and you shall find it. If you seek out the good vibes, the good men, the good people. And again, it doesn't always equate to money. I got to go there. It doesn't always mean I've logged into work and I didn't make not one private. Didn't get one private, but guess what? I had a good rapport. My energy was up. The fellas came through. It was a good conversation. Hell, if anything, it was good practice. I have to be able to see that it's still working in my favor. But if you're around people, places, and things to where you absolutely, there is no silver or even just a gray lining in it or whatever, you're going to have to hightail it out of there for your own self's sake. Again, that is you being your best friend. If you don't have nobody else to encourage you, encourage yourself. If you don't have nobody else to say, you're doing too much, you're overworking, you're overstressing it, I've had to learn to listen to the spirit that says, go lay down. Just go lay down. Don't even think, don't turn on your phone, don't do nothing. Just lay down for 5 minutes in your bed. Look at the ceiling fan just going around and around and around and around. Just don't do nothing. Don't think of nothing if you can. Don't say nothing. Don't pick up your phone. Turn everything off and just look at the ceiling fan for 5. Count the spins of the ceiling fan. Just don't do nothing. Being my own best company. Get to knowing me, I'll get to wondering, like, how exactly does the ceiling fan work? And, I wonder, and then I want to go to Gemini, I want to go to ChatGPT and ask the details, but at least that's still feeding me. I'm like, oh, okay, I know. Okay, cool. You get what I'm saying? So anyways, you guys, bye for now. One love kisses. You guys will hear me and see me in the next one, but I definitely want to come here. Uh-oh, I just dropped some stuff, my wires. Come here and share these things with you guys. One love kisses. You guys will see me and the girls. I feel like Jurassic Park. I don't know if you guys remember the part of Jurassic Park where, I think it's the first one or the second one, where the dinosaur starts tapping his toe and he's like, that's the part that reminds me of that. I don't know. Anywho, bye for now to my cam girls and anybody else who needed to hear this. One love kisses. You guys will hear me and see me in the next one. Bye for now. And